Good evening and welcome to Spiritual Story Time. I'm Domo Geshe. I hope you had a lovely day. It's been very, very windy here at Lotus Lake. And even though the dogs were out, we didn't lose any chihuahuas flipping over into the neighbor's field. But yes, windy. So tonight we're going to finish Tibetan Folk Tales. And we'll begin again. Maybe we'll take a break for tomorrow night and then begin a new book, which I don't even know what it is. I'd be happy if someone made suggestions. Something like Siddhartha, something spiritual, maybe Buddhist, or Jonathan Livingston Seagull. If you've got any good ideas, let me know quick tomorrow, and we'll try to find that book. So tonight, I have a couple of short stories, and the first one is called The Missing Treasure. As the setting sun sank beneath the glacier-tipped mountain peaks, they glowed red as the embers of a fire. From the flat roofs of the houses of Lhasa, children flew brightly colored kites from strings sprinkled with powdered glass. Yes, I remember children doing that. I did not do it myself. I wasn't allowed to, but I do. I love to watch the other children. Anyway, I digress. The children bobbed and weaved around one another, the kite shadowing their movements, as they laughed excitedly and attempted to cut each other's kite strings. A little boy of about 6 sat beside his uncle, a monk dressed in maroon robes. They watched the boy's kite sail higher and higher into the sky. Caught and held by the wind, it was so high that it appeared not to be moving. I have to stop and tell you a story. When I lived in California, I would occasionally go down to San Francisco, and on the Pier 39, there was a man who was flying a kite, and it was up so high, and by the ocean, it was just moving so strongly. And I was very shy, but I said to the man, could I hold that kite? Could I hold the string for a minute? And he agreed, and when I took this string in my hand, maybe it was like this enormous fish. I had never gone fishing, but like a big fish on the end of it, it just pulled so hard that I thought it might actually lift me into the air. It was the most amazing experience. My only kite experience, actually. So I digress. Anyway, back to this. It was so high that it appeared not to be moving. Still watching the kite, the boy said, "Tell me a story, uncle." The monk chuckled. "An ancient story, then." "A father said to his son," the monk began, "I am going to die soon, my son. Take my gold to your house. It is yours, but remember that you should not trust anybody, not even your wife." The father hoped that his son Sonam would remember his advice and that he would understand the ways of the world. Now Sonam had a very good friend whose name was Tamchu. As children, they had their lessons together and in the evenings played foot shuttlecock. Tamchu lived in the next village with his wife and 2 little boys. One day, Sonam decided to go on a pilgrimage to the holy monastery, and he thought to himself, when he was alive, my father told me not to trust anybody. But when he thought of his friend Tamchu, he could not believe that these words were true about him, not Tamchu. So he took his 2 bags of gold nuggets to his friend's house and asked him, "Tamchu, please keep my gold safe for me while I am away. This is the gold my father gave me when he died." Tamchu said, Oh yes, I will keep your gold very carefully, and when you return from your pilgrimage, it will be safe for you. You do not need to worry. We are good friends." So the monk continued the story. A year passed, and Sonam returned from his pilgrimage. He went to Tamchu's home and asked his friend, "May I have my gold back, Tamchu?" "Oh, I am sorry, Sonam. We are unlucky, so unlucky. The gold has turned to sand." Tamchu looked at his friend in amazement as he told him of this remarkable happening. But Sonam did not seem surprised, and after a few moments of silence, he said, "That's all right, Tamchu. Do not worry. You did your best to look after my gold." The two men ate together, and it seemed that the loss of the gold was almost forgotten. Later in the day, Sonam said to his friend, "Tamchu, I would like to look after your sons for a few months, as I do not have a family of my own. I would like to give them good food and good clothes. We should be very happy together in my home." "That is a very good idea, Sonam," Tamchu thought to himself. "Although he has lost his gold to me, he wants to look after my sons. Well," he thought, "he is a very kind person." So he said, "Certainly, Sonam, please take my sons for as long as you wish." Sonam took the boys to his home and looked after them very well. He then bought 2 little monkeys and gave them the boys' names. During the following days, Sonam trained the monkeys so that when he called, "Tenzin, come here," the older monkey would run over to him. When Sonam, here we go. When Sonam called, "Tupten, come here," the young monkey went over to him. The monkeys understood very well and learned quickly. When Tamchu came to see his sons, Sonam looked very sad as he greeted his friend. "I am so sorry, Tamchu. We are very unlucky, so unlucky. Your sons have turned into monkeys." Tamchu was very upset and called out his sons' names. Straight away, the 2 little monkeys appeared and ran over to him. They grabbed Tamchu's hands and danced about him like little children. Tamchu was distressed and asked his friend, "Sonam, what can we do? How can we turn monkeys back into my sons?" Sonam thought for a moment and then said to his friend, "That is easy," but he sounded sad as the impossibility of such a thing. "We need a lot of gold." "How much gold will do?" Tamchu asked. "About 2 bags of gold nuggets, at least." "As soon as possible," Tamchu said. "I will bring the bags of gold." And he hurried off to his home. Later he came back and gave Sonam the gold. Sonam took it and told his friends to wait while he went upstairs. A few moments later he returned. "Here you are, Tamchu. I have changed the monkeys back into human beings, into your sons." Tamchu was delighted to have his sons back, but he looked sheepishly at Sonam. The 2 friends could not help laughing at one another. At the end of the story, the monk himself burst out laughing as he saw that his nephew's kite string has been cut while the boy listened to the story. The 2 of them watched the kite float across the Lhasa Valley toward the golden rooftops of the Potala. I like that story. Yeah, this foot, what did they call it here? This sack, kicking. I think actually when I came to America back in the 70s, what's it called?
Hacky sack.
Hacky sack, like a hacky sack. That was Tibetan I don't know if it was an origin or other places had it, but this hacky sack were just kicking like that. Children and even adults did it like that. I thought I could do it a little bit, but I didn't really try very hard. Yeah. Anyway, another life. Our last story that I want to tell. This is called A Prayer That Was Answered. The little room glittered with light from the butter lamps, arranged neatly on a low table in front of the shrine. In the light from the lamps, one could pick out the holy objects arranged on the shrine, the sacred books wrapped in cloth, the image of the Buddha, a framed picture of the Dalai Lama, silver offering bowls, and on the wall behind, with incense smoke curling around it, one could see the Thangka painting of Tibet's patron deity and protector, Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of compassion, with 11 heads and 1,000 arms. All around on the walls of the small room were paintings of other deities, all of whom were objects of devotion to the people of Tibet. There was a painting depicting Dolma, the female aspect of compassion, and Jamyang Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. This room, the shrine room, was the richest in the tiny house, for the people of Tibet were a religious people whose lives revolved around the teachings of the Buddha, as expounded by the great gurus and saints who had achieved the ultimate state of enlightenment. The people believed that although the great saints had reached this state of enlightenment, they were still concerned for the welfare of all beings and remained to protect and guide them on their journey through this and future lives. So believed the old woman who sat in the corner of the shrine room, the beads of her rosary moving through her fingers as slowly as she repeated the prayer of Chenrezig, Om Mani Padme Hum. Over and over, the powerful prayer rolled from her lips. The old woman was concerned, for she was a poor widow without money or land. All she had in the world was an only daughter. The old woman knew that without a dowry to offer, her daughter would not be sought by the rich men of the land, and so would live her life in poverty and hunger. The old woman cared not for her own life, for it was almost over, but she wanted very much for her daughter to be prosperous and happy. It was for this she prayed. Now it happened that a poor man from a neighboring village had heard of the old woman's daughter, and when he saw her in the marketplace, he was so moved by her beauty that he determined to make her his wife. He knew that the mother would hardly be willing for her daughter to marry a man of such little substance, so he plotted to make the mother believe that he was rich and prosperous. Concealing himself in the shrine room of the old woman's house, the poor man waited for her to enter, make her offerings of food, and settle down in the corner to pray. The old woman prayed and prayed in earnest, begging for a rich man to come and take her daughter's hand in marriage. The poor man listened and waited for the old woman to finish. Then, just as she was about to leave the room, he spoke. The old woman was startled when she heard the voice. Seeing no one in the room, she believed it to be the voice of the gods. She heard the voice say, "How, in the morning of the next day," She heard the voice say how, in the morning of the next day, a wealthy man would appear on a white horse and would ask for her daughter's hand in marriage. The old woman was overjoyed. With her daughter, she cleaned the house from top to bottom, making it ready for the rich man the gods were sending as a husband for her daughter. Then she prepared food and told her neighbors to make ready for a big celebration the next day for her only daughter was to wed a rich man. The next day, the old woman and her daughter awoke early. The birds were singing, and the blue of the sky contrasted with the fiery mountain peaks, bathed in the glow of the rising sun. The old woman and the daughter were excited and happy, and they settled themselves outside their tiny house to await the arrival of the man on a white horse. Soon they caught their first glimpse of the man on the horizon. As he rode toward the house, the daughter felt sudden pangs of foreboding. She wondered if he would be handsome and kind, and whether her married life would be joyful and happy as she anticipated. All these questions sprang to her mind. Then she remembered that this man was a gift from the gods, so she need feel no fear. The poor man, dressed in garments his neighbors had lent him, and riding the white horse, which was the only one he owned, stopped in front of the old woman's house, dismounted, smiled at the daughter, and took her hand in his. The old woman found it hard to contain her excitement and bade the man enter the house to take refreshment. This he did, and after they had talked for a little while, he asked the old woman if he could take her daughter's hand in marriage. There was much joy. A celebration was held, and all the neighbors and friends gathered to wish the couple good fortune, for it was felt that here was a match that was truly made in heaven. The poor man took the girl, with her few possessions packed in a trunk, and they set off for his humble home in a nearby village. On the journey, the poor man began to feel concern about his deception. He was frightened that the girl would scream and shout when she saw that he was not a rich man after all, but a very humble peasant. He feared, too, that she would run away and be lost to him forever. The poor man, troubled by these thoughts, decided on a plan. He took the girl's possessions out of the trunk and buried them in the earth. Then he ordered the girl into the trunk, telling her that he wished to surprise her when they reached his home. Once the girl was inside the trunk, the man locked it and made his way home, leaving the girl in a ditch at the side of a forest path. When he reached his home, the poor man ran to the houses of his nearby neighbors, and telling them that he was bringing home a nervous new bride, warned them not to be concerned if they heard screams and shouts during the night. Then he fitted strong new bolts to his door so that the girl would not be able to escape. While the poor man was away, a rich chieftain passed the spot where the imprisoned girl was lying in the trunk, awaiting the return of her husband. The chieftain ordered his men to open the trunk, and when he saw the girl inside, he was so taken by her frail beauty that he took her away with him, leaving a fierce bear in her place inside the trunk. The poor man returned to fetch his bride, tied a rope around the trunk, and dragged it to his home. Inside the house, he opened the trunk and was overwhelmed by the fierce bear, made more ferocious by its imprisonment and rough handling. The poor man screamed and shouted for help as the bear attacked him, but the neighbors took no heed of the noise, for they had already been warned. So the poor man, who had plotted and pretended to be a god, died at the hands of a savage bear, and the girl lived happily ever after as the wife of a rich chieftain. The old woman's prayers had been answered. Whatever happiness is in this world has all arisen for the wish for the welfare of other beings. Whatever misery there is has arisen from indulging in selfishness. Buddhist precepts. So, this book, very interesting. I enjoyed reading it, and people have said they've been listening to it later on, just before bedtime. So, day after tomorrow, we'll start a new book. I hope you give me some good suggestions, something that is easy on my voice, not too long words or anything. Many blessings. Enjoy. See you soon. Good night.